Hello and welcome to the W Your Freelancing podcast, where you learn how to get better clients, raise your rates, and just generally have a way better life as a freelancer or agency owner. I'm your host, Zach Swinehart, and today I'm talking to Jesse Hanley from the email marketing tool Bento, which I am a user of and love it. His background's really cool because he started out as a solo freelancer, then scaled a 25-person agency, which he sold for life-changing money, and then started Bento. There are a lot of really cool lessons for us to learn here. What I thought was coolest about his transition is how he leveraged services when starting his product-based business to make his early customers worth a lot more per month. Because that's usually the challenge people run into is like with services, you can earn a six-figure income with just a few clients, really, if you have the right kinds of clients ongoing. Whereas products, you typically have to sell quite a lot of customers in order to hit your first six figures, and getting from that like 0 to 10 customers point alone can be challenging for people. So today we're going to basically go through Jesse's whole story of transitions and basically why he went from agency to products in the first place, how he reinvented his agency when it wasn't working. And whether you're new or you're just getting started, I think there are a lot of gems here today. So without further ado, let's go to the proper interview. I guess to start, let me properly introduce you. So this is Jesse. I know him from Bento, which is the email marketing software that we use. It's really great software. We switched from ConvertKit to it, and I'm loving it. So if you want to, go join Bento, it's bentonow.com. And he used to run an agency, which he scaled to 25 people, sold, and I had thought he used the runway from the sale to start Bento, but actually, it sounds like he started Bento on the side. So, maybe as a starting point, could you tell me how you first got started freelancing, at the very beginning of your journey? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so it was around 2015 or so. I previously to going consulting and freelancing, I worked in a supplement company in Australia in e-commerce, and we were just selling supplements online. And in that company, I kind of had a lot of freedom to do whatever I wanted as far as marketing was concerned. So whilst running that business, I learned things like, how to set up an abandoned cart, how to get all your email marketing right, how to do SEO, just kind of all the skills of the trade for e-commerce. And then on one day, I kind of negotiated with my boss to work remotely. But in that negotiation, we kind of switched from a role where I was an employee to consulting for the business. And then after that negotiation went down well, I ended up leaving the country. I left Australia and then moved to Thailand and started kind of working remotely for the business from remotely in Thailand. And then I started to pick up odd clients here and there after. But for the very early days, it was like my previous employer was client number one, and that kind of paid for my living expenses.
And I love this because we have some people in the community who are currently working day jobs. And one of them is Patricia, who's doing marketing as her day job for this company. And I'm always kind of saying things like use your day job as a way to do test projects that might be case studies to use as the basis of freelancing. So I'm curious, prior to switching into that more marketing role at the company, what were you originally doing for them? And how did you morph into this marketing role?
I was doing I was like the young tech guy in the company. So I was doing everything. I was setting up CRMs, I was setting up ERPs, I was setting up NetSuite and stuff for the company. I was kind of doing anything that was tech related because the supplement business, it's mostly sales guys and warehouse guys. It's kind of like the whole business. And then I was just doing anything kind of tech related from there. And so I would come up with an idea and I would say, hey, I want to do this. And then he'd go, all right, well, go implement it. And then I would, buy the tech, get it all set up. And that's also where I learned stuff like WordPress and Magento. We had a Magento site. That was the first one. Then we moved to WooCommerce on WordPress. And again, I'm picking up these skills as I'm kind of suggesting what to do and then implementing them myself. So because I was young at the time, I was really proactive at just, I got to learn. I want to do new stuff. So I was probably doing too much new stuff for the business, but that's how I got to learn all the basics at the start.
Yeah, it seems great, frankly. What did they originally like hire you for? Because
That
they
was
didn't
kind
hire
of
you.
it.
Yeah, they so they hired
Like,
you for young tech guy to do everything.
honestly, kind of like the boss was really cool. I was actually working in the retail store, and I was bored. I just had like a lot of time on my hands, and when I was working in the retail store, I was like, hey, you guys website isn't that great, can I rebuild it? Like, I've got time, I'm in the store. And then I rebuilt it on Magento, and then from there he was like, all right, we'll come down to Canberra and like work at the, in quotes, head office. And so I kind of like packed up my stuff and then moved to the
Mm.
head office, which was really just like a warehouse in the middle of nowhere. There's like paddocks around the place. And when I rock up, I'm like, oh, I've made like a grave mistake. But it wasn't. It was like the best thing that ever happened to me at that time for my career. So it was really
Yeah.
cool. And I basically like worked in that warehouse in the paddocks with the boss, and we just did a whole bunch of crazy stuff at the time. It was a crazy period of my life.
And was the boss the owner of the company? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, he was like a young, bootstrapped new dad, who, he was also quite jacked. Everyone was pretty like jacked in the business, which made it a little bit intimidating at times. Like a lot of thick-headed opinions.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool. It was a very positive, proactive, fast kind of environment where it's just like, all right, if you got an idea and you think you can make some money, like just do it.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I like this. I'm the reason I ask about if he was the owner and stuff, like I'm curious what the revenue was and company size was, but the vibe I'm getting, like I'm thinking about when I worked at my day job, which was at a marketing agency, like I was very much hired just to be a developer. And even though I have a mind for like looking for opportunities and areas where I can solve things, there were many levels of bureaucracy. And so there weren't so many chances for me to spot an opportunity and actually be able to execute on it. Like I'd bring it up to my manager person and they'd be like, no, we don't want to do that. When in fact, if I bet I went straight to the CEO, he would have been super down for it. But there wasn't that like communication channel in that company. So the small scrappiness seems maybe like a cool takeaway in terms of the job learning aspect.
Yeah, there's downsides to it as well. I mean, like the yeah, with the upsides of having freedom, the company was also kind of run in a very I don't know, I got like a nice way to put it. I don't know. It had its ups and downs working in
Duct
that
tape,
company.
perhaps.
Yeah. Had its ups and downs working in that company. And so yeah, I don't know. I think there's pros and cons to working in like a stable
Yeah.
organization and also like a very bootstrappy, scrappy startup that's moving really fast. And in terms of size, like millions of dollars a month in rev for that business. And it was kind of like spread out retail shops, online business,
Mm.
and a couple of distribution companies. So I basically did all the tech across this kind of like, you know, group of co's.
Cool. I won't harp too much on this because I want to get into the agency stuff. I just want to paint the picture. So you eventually negotiated to working remotely. How'd you do that? Like any tips for people who want to do the same? I
Yeah,
guess
I
it's
think
easier since COVID, but yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
I think like the big one was like having a boss that was flexible enough to consider it. He was also like he was an avid reader. He just read a lot. He read a lot of the same books that I was reading, listened to a lot of podcasts, the same podcasts that I was listening to. So like I think already knew that, yeah, like Jesse's job could be done remotely. But then additionally, I think I wedged myself into like a position where like I was needed in the company.
Mm,
So I had leverage. I couldn't really be replaced, or I could be replaced, but they'd have to sunset a lot of systems. I was in kind of a key man risk for the
yeah.
company. And I think they were just like, all right, well, we've got to kind of say yes. And there's not really an option. And Jesse said he's going to work from Thailand. And so we're just going to trust that he's going to do a good job. And that was important to me. So I did do a good job when I left.
And were you prior to going remote, were you working like full time or were you kind of like
Yeah.
part time ish? Yeah.
Yeah. Full time. Yeah.
So when you transitioned to them being client number one and then eventually to them being, one of several clients, like how did that work? Did you go from full time on staff to like part time ish when you were working remote, or what did that next step look like?
Yeah, it was like even at the previous company, it was like you don't really track hours, you just rock up to the office, right? And so I think in most companies, most employees probably have like 4 hours of really good work a day, if we're going to be honest. And the rest is either like just sitting at their desk and, doing email fodder and stuff. Like most employees have 4 focused hours and everything else is whatever they fill it with. And so when I went abroad, I did my 4 focused hours on the business, but I was making friends, I was networking, I was going to events, I was, just meeting people. And I would meet people. I'd also meet people online. That was like a really big part early on. I would hang out in communities and forums. And I think what I did well early on was I used to, wherever I participated, I used to always have like my bio very specific of like what I was doing. Just really simple, right? It was just like, I'm Jesse, I do SEO, or I'm Jesse, I do growth marketing. And people, when I engaged or I wrote thoughtful posts, they would just reach out and they'd say like, hey, I need someone to help with my email marketing or whatever. Are you game? And then I just kept saying yes, And so I think early on, it was just, I made myself available and I positioned myself to be open to those things. And good work did come the more I engaged online and offline.
So you were remote, you decided to start looking for clients, or did you decide to you weren't even like planning to get clients from these communities that you were participating in? Like, was it a strategic move or was okay?
Yeah.
So
at the time I enjoyed it.
Okay. So you weren't necessarily seeking a community as to like where would potential clients be. You were just saying like, where are people talking about the things that I'm kind of doing and interested in?
Yeah, and I really like stuff like SaaS and software. So like for me, I would engage in those communities. So then SaaS businesses would reach out to me to do marketing or whatever it was. So I had interest in those things. Therefore, I participated. It wasn't. And I remember like early on trying to do like some courses and stuff that were trying to tell me to like pick my niche, so, pick dentists that live in Ohio. And like that kind of stuff never really jived with me because I'm not interested in lawyers in New York. Like I just don't have an interest. So it was impossible for me to participate in those communities, whereas it was frictionless to participate in all the other communities. Even like I remember Nomad List, which is like really popular now, but early on in like 2015, it was pretty fringe. And so a lot of the people that were hanging out in Nomad List and had subscriptions were small business owners that were working remotely who had weird internet companies. And those weird internet companies would reach out. And that was how I kind of started bringing on clients. And they were great clients, frankly. Like the filtering in that small niche community was fantastic. And I'm still like good friends with a lot of those. And a lot of those customers, funnily enough, use Bento like today. And we're talking like almost 10 years. It's like some of those 2015 relationships still to this day are there, and they're good friends, all their customers. So that part's, I only realize it's like almost 10 years like today.
Yeah, 2015 doesn't feel like it should be 10 years ago.
No, but it is close.
Yeah. Yeah, like 2015 is when I first left the US to do the whole digital nomad thing. So it was one of those like epoch changes for me. And so everything before 2015 feels like a really, really long time ago, and everything since feels like very recent.
The same. Yeah, I agree.
So it sounds like then your first freelance clients probably came as a result of this like community stuff. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a quick like sidebar is, even when you were working at that supplement company, or maybe even before, like, did you know you one day wanted to run a SaaS? It sounds like you had the interest spanning back a while.
To run a SaaS, maybe, yeah. But to be frank, like I just wanted to survive. Like I just wanted to. I also saw that the previous employer that I was working with, because of some financial stuff, a lot of currency issues, it may not have survived. And so for me, I was like, well, I've got this dream in my head. I want to work remotely. I want to work from France. I want to work from Thailand. I want to work from all these really cool spots. So I need to survive. I like need to pay for flights and my Airbnbs and my hotels and stuff. And so a large part of what I was doing was more so for survival of that dream that I had. And so I was bringing on clients and work for that more so than anything else. And so like I had like an identity that I was pursuing, and trying to find work was trying to keep that identity somewhat like alive, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, does that make sense?
it does totally. And I'm just looking for the threads, like the reproducible things. The things that stick out to me are like, well, number one, you had a strong why, which was like you really wanted to live this lifestyle, so you're motivated for these things. And other people will have different whys. The other thing is that because you were naturally interested in like the closer to the money things, and because you had this experience in the marketing stuff, you, I guess, didn't need so much intentionality around like getting yourself in front of the quote right kinds of clients. Because if you were enjoying hanging out on Nomad List, enjoying hanging out on SaaS communities, like these are good, fundamentally good clients for freelancers anyway. But nonetheless, the takeaway is you participated in these communities, you were vocal about what you do, you made relationships. So I would be interested in like, because my own hesitance that I've expressed to you in the Bento Discord, where I've been prior to starting this community, I was like, I don't want to run a Discord. How do you do it, Jesse? So it seems like you have a natural affinity for communities and stuff. But I would be interested to hear like how you interacted in these in terms of like, if someone's listening and they're like, ooh, I'd love to start participating in communities so that I can build relationships and generate some of my first clients from there. Like, what are the takeaways of what you think you did well with your participation that might be reproducible?
Yeah, I think even to this day, a thread that's always been true is I've just tried to be like a helpful neighbor. So, similar to you see a neighbor, she's got, things of trash. I'm thinking about like our neighbor. If I see her, I grab her trash and I take it down. And you try and do that online everywhere that you can. So if you see someone struggling with something on SEO, or you see someone struggling, whatever it is, give them a hand and don't necessarily like ask for anything. Kind of like never ask for anything in return. Just be that helpful neighbor. And if you're a helpful neighbor enough, people do recommend you. And there is a natural compounding that starts to take effect that just is invisible and really stacks up over time. But it's hard to give that recommendation. You're like, just help a lot of people online and like you'll get business. But that's kind of like how it works. And you don't know how that business is going to manifest. Like there's people that I've helped over the years, and then they've recommended huge customers for Bento multiple years down the line because a conversation comes up with that person that I helped and someone else, and they're like, oh wow, like that Jesse guy's working on something cool. I'll make the introduction. They make the introduction and I get the business that way. But you just don't know how these things are going to play out. So if you are just helpful, you're just planting lots of seeds everywhere. Some of them take 6 months, some of them take like 5 to 10 years. You just don't really know.
Yeah, but in my interactions with you, I can definitely appreciate this. Because I in my mind, I've told you, I define you as like my role model for being really freaking nice. I aspire to be as friendly as you. So when I think of like, what should I do in a given situation, I try to say, what might Jesse do in this situation? But the thing I'll be interested to dig into is like now, and this is for later in the chat, if we even have time, but now with you as this like solo tech founder, solo SaaS bootstrapper with so many demands on your time, like how you prioritize. Yeah, and a baby. But yeah, so coming back to this, because I think this is gold, this bit about trying to be a helpful neighbor. When I was doing my first like internet marketing-y business, I don't know if you ever heard, maybe Sasha heard of it. There's this tool called Artisteer back in the day. Did either of you guys hear about this? It was like how you made WordPress themes in like 2010. And it was like the first drag and drop WordPress theme builder thing. So like I made a business where I taught people how to use this software. And I would do marketing and forums where I'd like respond to people's questions, have a backlink to my site. But I ended up like, I didn't follow your just be a helpful neighbor thing. I was a little bit more intentionally promotional where I'd like copy and paste in a signature on a forum that doesn't have signature functionality. So like everyone knows Zach fucking pasted this thing here. So, and I think someone who does this well is like Arvid Kahl. I first met him because he did a post in Indie Hackers and he had a really nice, like subtle link to his blog. So in this helpful neighbor thing, like, is the KPI literally just be a helpful neighbor, don't even promote yourself? Is it like, basically, if one end of the spectrum is copy and paste a signature, it feels way too overly promotional. The other end of the spectrum is you only be helpful, no one has any way of finding out what you do. Like, where do you think the right area of the spectrum is? Is it that you have your nice bio with a link back to your site and that's it? You don't actually promote anything with the link in your responses? Or what do you think that looks like?
I think you have to kind of somewhat go with, you got to kind of look internal, like what type of person are you? Are you like a heavy salesperson? Are you someone that likes just chatting to people? And you don't have, what am I trying to get at here? I think some of it is, it just kind of like happens a little bit. Like for me and my personality, I'm less salesy online. I've never been like that. And for me, I just try to make it clear what I'm doing, like behind the scenes. So if I'm participating in a forum, practically that looks like, if someone goes, oh, wow, Jesse's response is helpful, they click on the profile to work out what I'm doing. And then there's Bento. And then there is a very clear, bio that says Bento, email marketing automation for XYZ. And then they maybe are curious, or maybe what they've done is they've actually just put Bento in a category in their brain. So when they are looking for an email marketing alternative later, Bento's there. And it's the same with when I was doing SEO or any growth stuff. If I had SEO or technical SEO in my bio, people then go, all right, if I need someone, Jesse's the person there. And I think that realization was why I never really aggressively sold. It was always that most people aren't gonna buy straight away, right? They're not like reading a forum post and they're like, oh, I'm gonna hire that consultant. What they're mostly doing is they're putting you in their brain as kind of like an item in a category. And your job is to make yourself the easiest item in that category to remember. So however you get that done it's up to you. But for me, it was, I think my name's it's just Jesse, but like there's not too many Jessies online. So Jesse, thing that I do, and make sure that's really clear. That was probably the most of the extent that I did.
So you're saying like if I saw your name in the forum, like as your username, it would be like Jesse space SEO person kind of thing, or would it be like just Jesse? I clicked your profile,
even like more subtle. It's like, yeah, because you don't want to look like someone that's constantly selling, or you don't even want to look like someone that's like a reply guy. People smell that, I think. And so, and even at the time, like honestly, Zach, at the time, I'm enjoying engaging in these forums. Like I'm enjoying myself posting, and I'm not being deliberate. And the fact that leads are coming is just something that like I'm happily surprised by. But
yeah,
I'm just generally enjoying myself in that. And then as a result, people I think are seeing that and they're like, all right, Jesse's helpful and easy to get along with, and he does SEO.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah. And the reason I was probing for these things is that I think, sometimes if I go out and do these promotional things, I think that maybe I do them because I feel like I have to. I feel like it's the only way that it quote would work. But I love the way you've gone about it, because I think you're absolutely right about that, like invisible behind the scenes thing. And sometimes it happens just as a result of mere intentionality and like consistent intentionality in a space or something. Cool. So I think this is a good framework for people who might want to do some interactions online. So let's talk about how you got your first clients then. So some of them just kind of reached out to you from the communities. Like I guess you're now in Thailand, you're doing some freelancing, working for the main client. Like what did your flow look like from there into like getting from there to, I guess, your first hire? Maybe that's a good one.
Yeah, because my memory is like a little bit rusty, I'll kind of like loosely, I guess, kind of talk about like how the team looked. So basically it was like me consulting, finding freelance clients online. As I started to get a little bit of like I think I would call it like a reputation in like some of these communities, I would get more business. So, leads from the Nomad list community, leads from a lot of the forums I was active in online. And then I needed help. And so I just started bringing on people like people that would reach out to me and be like, hey man, like, I remember like one guy, Manny, who was awesome. He was this young guy from New York, and he reached out and he was like, hey man, like I listened to you on like a podcast that I did. And like, I'd love to work for you. Another time I was like, oh, I got too much work. And I was like, all right, you're on Manny. I'll bring you on. I'll give you some stuff. And so he kind of, yeah, he did stuff for me, and we did stuff together. And then there was a time where he's like, oh man, like I hate writing articles. I was like, yeah, I don't want to write them. And we didn't want to keep going to Upwork. So we went to a site called jobrack.eu. and I hired my first two full-time writers from Macedonia, and they kind of helped build a really good base because it was more economic than hiring in the US or in Australia. And frankly, the quality of work that we got out of that region was like far superior than what we were getting elsewhere. It's not even just about the price. We just great attitudes in that region of the world. Like so much so that for Bento, and you've interacted with Anya, Anya on my support team is just, she's like amazing, and she works really, really hard, and she crushes. And I just really like hiring in that region. So we're on the first two writers, and then I started to make mistakes. So I started bringing on more and more customers, but doing everything, kind of like the full service agency thing. Doing some SEO, doing some content writing, doing some email marketing, doing some PPC. So, I brought on a guy to help with PPC. I brought on someone to help with the management of the team that was growing. It was just more work. I just got to throw heads at it, and I was just trying to like patch spots with more heads. And then it got to a point where it just really wasn't sustainable. And I forget what the team size was. It was small. It was just like somewhere between 5 to 8 or somewhere, just around there. And it's just too much work, and like too many mistakes were happening because either I wasn't delegating properly, or there was miscommunications, or bad ad creative went out. And for whatever reason, that started to really kind of going back to what you're saying about, I'm positive and engaging in all these communities. I also was absorbing a lot of energy from a lot of these clients and my team. And when that negative energy started to build up, it started to really impact me. I think that's just the type of person that I am. And so I remember I was traveling in like Serbia, and I just kind of not had a breakdown, but I kind of like had a breakdown. It was just really stressful. So I ended up calling my old man, because he's really good at advice, and he goes, all right, come back to Australia and like we'll sort the business out. And so I did that, flew back to Australia, chatted to him. And then when we were talking over, I think it was ribs, we were talking over ribs, and he goes, well, what's the part of the business that you like? Because there's a lot of these parts of the business that you don't like. And I was like, well, I really like this part where we hire writers and we just give them to clients, basically a hiring agency. And we only had a couple of those going on, and the rest was like everything else under the sun. And I go, I like this part. This part's good. I find great talent. I put them in a company. They work full time. And then when they churn, I just put them into a new client. It was sticky. It worked. And I liked it. And so we basically started from scratch. I tried to find everyone that worked for me new jobs, or help them kind of get in the next one. That was an awful process. Firing people sucks. But I tried to do it the best that I could. And then I just started with two of my best writers. And then we started building from there. And then it basically went from a full service agency to a productized service, which was, we'll find content writers, we'll put them in your business full time. They'll write for you Monday to Friday. And then when you're done, we'll transition them off. And then that was the business. Very, very clear scope, great value, because it was great price. You get so much output for that price. And then it became like a much easier sale and a much easier business to scale, because it was like, all right, if I've got leads, I need more heads. And so that was kind of like the only problem that I had to solve. I just had to find great talent. And if I found great talent, I could close more deals. And that kind of became the business that I ended up selling.
I love that. I'm curious what the, so you said that when you decided, like, I feel like I want to unpack everything you just said for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
So when you decided,
I can talk.
When you decided to kind of scale back and start from the ground up, you said you had done this for just a couple clients before, right? The finder. When you decided, when you talked with your dad, you decided to like start from scratch. You had done this whole find a writer, place in a client's business. You said you'd done that just a couple times prior, yeah?
It wasn't all the revenue at the time. It was like a small pocket of revenue in a large sum. So like basically when I changed the business, revenue went off a cliff.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So what I'm curious about is, how did you get your lead flow coming in for that? Like, how did you build all this lead flow for the I need a writer in my business kind of productized service?
Yeah, well, what's interesting was like a lot of previous clients were potential clients of the full-time writers. They all had blogs, they all needed content. And when I changed my positioning online to that offering and continued to be helpful, again, leads started coming in for this new surface. Like it was kind of like that. It was like I shifted my online brand kind of to like that. This is what I'm focused on, and people naturally came from all the same things. And then also people were like, they just had needs, right? A lot of people had this need. They're like, all right, I want the blog to grow. I want, in quotes, SEO, but I don't want to pay an SEO agency because I don't want an audit. I don't want links. I basically just need people writing content at an affordable price. And the value that, again, the cost for what you got, a full-time placement in Eastern Europe for X thousand, that was a very easy sale. And so when, again, people stumbled across it online, they're on Twitter, they click my link, they go to the website, they see the price, they see the offering. All right, great. I'm going to reach out to Jesse and chat to him just to make sure that he's legit. And the sales calls are very simple. It was just like, yeah, we'll get a good placement. If they're not a good placement, we'll give you a refund or whatever. Like Hakuna Matata, don't worry about it. So it's a very, very easy sales process.
It's interesting thinking about the positioning, because it doesn't sound like you didn't double down on copy or like CRO or something. Like this is ultimately commoditized work, and you were running like essentially like an outsourced agency placement kind of headhunter almost kind of thing. What were, maybe it's hard for you to like, no, you can definitely appreciate it though. Like what were your experiences selling this versus selling something where you can do value-based pricing a little bit more easily, like copywriting or something?
Yeah, the thing with value-based pricing is like you're usually trying to gauge the value-based pricing on just like so many factors, and those factors all, I think, have like somewhat emotional ties to it. So if you are value-based pricing on like the quality of your output and just all these different things, they're going to be slightly subjective to the client. And so you can just run into dissatisfied clients, value mismatch, where you think, hey, like I'm providing X for Y, this is a steal, but then the client may think that you're overvaluing what they're getting, right? And that mismatch, I think, was contributing to issues that I previously had. So I would try and sell up, sell more expensive, but there some clients there wasn't a mismatch, and some clients there was a mismatch, and then those would, I don't know, play on me quite significantly. Whereas I found with the productized service, because again, a full-time person for a few $1,000s is just insane value. So and everyone was happy, and so the risk was very low for clients, I think, as well. They were like, all right, it's just like a few grand, I'll try it out for a couple of months. If it doesn't work, it's okay. It's like not the end of the world. But value-based pricing, if you're trying to charge like an SMB SaaS business or something, thousands of dollars or whatever, they'll be angry if they don't get value out of that quickly. And especially for search-based work, SEO work that takes a long time, what really worked with the productized service was that the people that I was often selling to, if they were like affiliate marketers or anything, understood the dynamics. They understood SEO takes time, but they just wanted to buy like they just needed resources, and that was what I was providing them, right? An affiliate needs content. They're going to find someone else for the links. They're going to do the technical stuff, and we were basically just selling that one little resource pocket in their business and trying to do that really, really well. Where in the value-based model, I was doing links and I was doing content and I was doing technical, and then I got to prove the value. Hey, did I drive more business in the last 6 months? Yes or no? No. Oh my God, well, you just paid 20 grand. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just very, very, very different. So I think with the new business, because it wasn't value-based, it took a lot of the responsibility of success off my plate. My success was, are the writers performing? Yes or no? And that scope was tight and somewhat non-emotional.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that aspect of fast forwarding the like payoff is huge. Like having to wait 6 months to learn if you even spent your money well or whatever. Like that's always been, I've always seen SEO as kind of like black magic, never understood it. And this would be my fear if I were to try to like partner with an SEO firm for my clients or offer SEO myself after having learned, like, it's nebulous and it's distant. Whereas this, it's like, at the end of week one, if this writer is having the impact in your business that you hoped they would, because they're writing content and you're either happy with it or you're not. And that immediately. That's cool.
Even advertising and stuff. Like I did quite a bit of Facebook advertising. I quite enjoyed that. But I only enjoyed it with clients that had good businesses. So, running ads on a customer that has a good business it's like quite easy a lot of the time. And if you charge that same amount of money to a customer that doesn't have a good business, you're basically like hitting a brick wall for that entire engagement that eventually churns, and then they're dissatisfied, and it's, you're anxious and all that kind of stuff. So that was another issue that I had, like more of the full service stuff. I hated running ads for bad clients. I loved running them for great clients. And often the success was more about the business, less so the strategies that were being executed. It's very hard to sell well on just a bad customer, like a bad business.
Yeah. So I guess that comes back to, again, like being able to have a bit more control over the like execution of the process, or the successful execution of the process. But the question that comes up for me would be, if somebody hired a writer and their business wasn't in a good stage to like get an ROI from that, presumably they would churn. And so it's not like the writing agency would be totally immune from bad businesses not being able to make the most of it. What was the difference there, I guess?
I think the difference was that the total cost of hiring a full-time writer, deploying that on your site, and like them coming up with the briefs or whatever, sometimes we helped with the briefs. I think just the risk was a lot lower, because again, like low few thousands, versus them hiring an, in quotes, SEO agency. Like to get the amount of content that they would get from us from like an SEO agency would be multiples more, right? So just, I think our clients had a lot more patience, and for them, they were like, all right, I pay X thousand and I check off the blog is consistent, and for the more like software companies or those types of businesses that we were doing stuff, software ecom, that was kind of like what we were doing. They're like, all right, Jesse's team is doing content, check, a few $1,000s. Like the head of marketing is doing their job, at least doing that part, right? And they were okay coming back to it and evaluating a lot later on. They just had longer time horizons. So yeah, very different to, again, hiring an SEO agency where it's like value based. They're doing their audits, they're doing a whole bunch of extra stuff, and then because you're charging so much, they're like, all right, well, what are the results every month, every single month? We just didn't have that responsibility. It wasn't our responsibility.
Yeah, that makes sense. Were you what was your process like? Were you basically just a headhunter where you'd find a good placement, you'd place them? Were you doing some training? Were you doing management? Like what all was included with this service offering, I guess?
Yeah, so the service offering was like a full-time writer, and then there was like an editorial team that kind of like acted in pods almost. So, editor would manage a handful of writers. And so then the pieces would be like written, edited, and then like sent to the client or uploaded directly, which was also a huge win if we could get access to be able to do that in like the WordPress site or Contentful or something like that. Because then it was completely hands off, right? The client would maybe read the post and then hit publish. So yeah, and then after writing for the first couple of months, there's just like a lot of trust, after they've given a lot of feedback, and we're taking in that feedback. The editors are taking in that feedback, and they're just making sure that feedback's implemented with all future posts after we get it. And we're very like accepting the feedback. So if someone was like, this sucks for X reason, we'd log it down, make sure it was implemented for the next post, and move on. So making sure we just did the best job that we could. But yeah, there was a very small editorial team, and I internally promoted upwards. So good writers became editors and kind of coached and worked with new writers.
Cool. Thinking what I want to ask. So it seems like all your clients that hired you were quite solution aware. That's like the vibe I'm getting, is that part of what made this easy is that you weren't convincing people that you should hire a writer and they can do all these things for you, and thus you weren't really needing to sell on value. It was more everyone already knew they wanted a writer, and you're saying we will give you a good one, pretty much.
Yeah. So like if I was selling to an affiliate marketer, in their head, I need writers, I need content output, so I can sell to that. If it's a SaaS SMB business, they're kind of, I'm selling a checkbox, done. Your email, your blog's done. Like, we'll make sure there's enough content on there, and you're in quotes loosely doing SEO to the best of your ability. At least your output's going to be phenomenal. And they were, by the time like we sold, they were kind of like the two main segments from memory.
And did you have like custom landing pages for these segments, or was it more this would just inform how you talk to them?
Is it inform how I talk to them? I mean, to be blunt, my websites like sucked. Arguably like weren't existent a lot of the time as well. Which is kind of like another thing. It's like you can go pretty far by just having, like, I think like the business, I'm not even going to mention the business name, but the business name changed like multiple times, I think, throughout me like running it and like having the agency and stuff. And I think what was true was the business name didn't matter. What I thought the business name was kind of didn't really matter. A lot of people just wanted to do business with us, like what we were focused on. And I think we got pretty, the website served as a way for people to contact us and schedule a call, which was something else to highlight. Everywhere, including with Bento now, I'm very easy to get on the phone with, like everywhere. And every single one of my websites, even like my old personal website, which I used to get a lot of like leads across all the businesses from, like just my name.com, everywhere has a booking link. So people can just quickly go, well, I'm just going to like, I loosely like think this may be something I want. I'm just going to talk to him. And then I focus on selling. And I think my sales skills are pretty decent from the supplement days, because I used to have to, call, bodybuilders in gyms and make them buy $10,000 worth of protein powder. So my sales skills are decent. So my goal often, and I wasn't mindful of it, but it's been true throughout the whole time, is just having demo links and call links everywhere. And then that kind of acted almost like a little fishing lure. And people would come and they'd nibble, they'd chat to me, and then I'd bring them all the way in once they're on the call.
Did you do you do any like pre-call qualification to minimize calls with people who wouldn't be good clients?
Pre-call qualification. I mean, all the calls were kind of like that, to like a certain extent. There wasn't so much like a process for the sales. It was generally like, all right, who are they? Like, who are they? Like, what's the problem they're trying to solve? Why have they come to me in their mind? Like, when they reach out, book the call, where were they at that given point in time? And then, do I currently have a good product or solution to resolve that immediately? If not, how can I help them to the best of my ability right now on the call, and not try and sell them anything? And that attitude was also really good. I think a lot of calls, if I mentally was like, I can't serve this guy, I'd just try and help as much as I could. And a lot of people would end the call being like, hey, like, are you gonna sell me anything? And I'd be like, nah. like nah. But I was hopefully helpful enough that I either helped them so much that they didn't need my help, or they didn't need anyone's help. But I just try and focus to help whatever problem in their head they came to me with. And then I wouldn't deliberately sell unless I saw it was like a really, really good fit. So I was filtering actively in those calls.
And you never had an issue where you felt like you were getting on a lot of calls with people who like never could have afforded you in the first place or something like that?
No, never.
Okay.
Which I think is a proxy of the communities that I was in.
So one thing that that I think is like one of my takeaways from my own agency, that is something I generally pretty much always would advise someone on, is that I feel like scaling staff without, and in your case, this new model, this productized model, is maybe the solution to that, actually, because I want to dig into your business structures, but it sounds like it was lean enough that your staff could kind of fluctuate depending on clients. But basically, if someone's scaling an agency like your V1 agency, it makes me very nervous to see someone scale if they don't have like lead flow that they can really directly affect and scale up. Because a lot of people scale agencies, myself included, where it's like you get really busy, so you need to hire somebody, and then you need to hire more people, but now you need more projects to pay for these people and keep them busy. And if you can't actually go out and do a thing to get more projects, it can be like a very financially stressful situation. So I'm curious, I think you dropped a couple hints to things that you were doing that were bringing leads to your business. Like you mentioned that you were doing podcast guesting and stuff.
Yeah, like that's like appearing in it's like doing this stuff, to be honest. It's appearing in a small community or something. So it's not me. I've never reached out to a podcast, so I don't actively do that. It's again, like you and me are friends. I chatted to you last week, and we were like, oh, like I don't even, like maybe cool, and then now I'm here, right? It wasn't. I didn't know you had a podcast. Like we just were chatting as friends, and then we're like, oh, like maybe this could be helpful to your community. So then that's why I'm jumping on it. It was not deliberate, So, yeah. What's the question again? I started thinking about something else.
Well, so what I was steering it towards is I'm curious, like, so your eventual end state when you sold the agency was 25 people on team, and some of those people were placed, like the writers were placed, but then the editorial team, like those are fixed expenses for you. If you lost like 5 clients one month, you would presumably have to like fire or just if they're contractors, just not give them work to the people who are the writers. Like I'm curious, did you have any lead flow where it's like, okay, pull a lever, whether that lever is I need to go in communities more, or I go on podcasts, or I do paid ads or whatever to get more leads coming in?
No, and there's a few like interesting dynamics about this. Like one was that with this new model, the churn rate was significantly lower. So that was nice. So the business slowed down a lot, which I think is like, as we grew again, the business slowed down. And so the amount of work that I was practically doing in the business, like I was just doing a lot of other stuff. This is around the time when I started doing more Bento stuff. So I started pulling money out of the business. I started hiring people to help me with Bento, and started teaching myself how to code a lot more. And I was doing less on the writing business. And again, I just think the business slowed down significantly and had more predictable revenue. So the cost of goods were also now a lot more predictable as well. So if I lost two or three clients, and I had a couple of writers handy, it like wasn't the end of the world. And it was easy enough that I could often like hit up an existing client and be like, hey, like, do you want to expand a little? And they would go, yeah, sure, give me a writer. And I'll just throw them an extra writer, right? Or I'll throw someone else a writer at a discount. Or I would have 2 friends that wanted writers, so I'd split one between 2. It just slowed down a lot, and it became a lot less stressful to sell. And it was just like, oh, okay, like we lost the writer or we lost the client. Like they naturally churned. They've written all the content in their niche. It's been 6 months. Okay, that writer is now phenomenally trained. I can hit up a friend. Hey man, I got this like great writer who's been writing about like SaaS or tech for the last like 6 months. Do you want them to write for your thing? Yeah, sure, bring it on. Let's test them out. Place them, done. Whereas with the other business, it was like, all right, well, we lost 2 Facebook clients. Now we've really got to find 2 Facebook people to pay for the Facebook guy's salary. And that was hard. That was really hard. Like that was hard. And then you're like, okay, now I got to scale down. Whereas it was okay to have writers in reserve with this new business, right? Because I have a resource, talent, and all I'm doing is placing. So it's okay to have a reserve. Whereas you got to be very deliberate with the full service agency to have capacity to have that reserve. And frankly, I don't think you hit that till you're a lot bigger. And I've seen businesses like Client Boost and stuff do it really well with pods, but often they're selling an entire pod to a client for a very high price. And a pod has like a salesperson, a designer, a ad person and a content person, right? And then the client's buying that entire pod and they're selling that pod. And that model makes sense, but only happens at a much larger scale. So
Yeah.
unless you plan to sell a pod of 1 to 1 or 2 clients, it's hard to make that work.
What were your well, I don't know how much you want to talk about cost and margins, but I think this interview is really interesting because it's not going quite how I expected, but there are so many cool takeaways. So like where I ended with my freelancing, like I used to be running a small agency. I scaled down to just being solo because when I was looking at my time and energy, like the things that I find really draining are often like QA and management and stuff like this. And so if I had a 3-person agency, I'd have to take on like 4 projects or 3 projects a month in order to pay everybody. Or I could just take on 1 project myself and get paid the same amount and not have to manage 3 or 4 projects. That was like kind of the logic that happened. And when I ended, when I ended there, it was like basically I would freelance like 12 hours a week, spend the rest of the time like starting some SaaS. That was kind of my transition out. And yours is like the agency version of that with Bento. And the thing that I think worked so well for you, it seems like, and this is what I want to fact check as like a real highlight of the episode, is like I think that the 2 big things I'm taking away is, number 1, you had monthly recurring revenue with low churn. Number 2, you had your service offering trimmed down to one where you don't need all of the like bullshit hierarchical management structures of like a full service agency. And that's the one I want to check about because I don't know how your staff was structured. So yeah, maybe that's my question is, you had 25 people when you sold it. What structure did that look like? Was it literally just pods of writers and editors and there were a bunch of them, or was there like someone who managed 3 pods and someone who managed this person? Like,
no, we're saying like one kind of ops person, primary ops person, Anastasia, and then like between like 2 to 4 editors. And when I gave that 25 number, I've got a feeling it's higher. I just haven't gone through like what the final numbers was like in the sales docs when I exited, but it's like in that range. So let's say it's like 25, 1 ops person, 2 or 3 editors on top of that number, and that was generally pretty good. So yeah, very small like management team that was overseeing everything.
And so so you'd say like 1 ops person, 2 to 4 editors, and then you're saying like 10 to 20
Everyone
writers.
Yeah.
And so this ops person, what did they do?
Found talent, did personnel problems, someone's having a bad day, someone had a breakup, communicating that with the client, such and such had a breakup, they got to take 2 weeks off because they had a breakup. We'll give you a discount or whatever, and often the client would be like, don't worry about that, everyone has breakups, just pay them anyway. Like that would happen, which is crazy. Stuff would come up and it would just be like, the client would just be like, oh, whatever, like give them time off, or like, they treated them like their employees, which I think was really different. And the business that I built like has become more popular now. There's companies like Lemons or lemon.io, if you're like familiar with it, and they basically do what I do, but they do it with like developers. And like I reached out to them recently and they kind of do the same thing. They reach out and say, hey, like I want a front-end developer. And they say like, here is a handful of people that we think is a really good match. Here's the price. You're going to pay for it. And then they lock it in. And then when the engagement's done, they bring it back into the pool. They place them with someone else. So yeah, it's just a really simple business. It's like a nice, clean business model. And in the Lemons one, I think as well, you can also get like a senior engineer to overlook stuff, but that's optional. Whereas in us, the editor was kind of like a bonus. It was like a writer, but compared to going to Upwork or these other things, it's like our editors have seen hundreds of clients, have seen, millions of words at that point. And so they make sure that what they're going to get is valuable and is what the client wants, essentially.
If you place a writer with a client, like the client would speak directly to the writer, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So that cut down basically. So like your ops person didn't do so much project management. They just kind of like just managed the placements basically, and like kept things
more or
smooth.
less. Yeah,
And then
we'd use Basecamp as like the tool of choice to manage all the clients. So every client would have their own Basecamp in Basecamp, and then the writers are in there, editors were in there, clients are in there. And then, there's a to-do list, kind of Kanban board style, like the Basecampy way to do to-dos. And all communication happens in Basecamp, none on email. So, day one, Basecamp gets started, editor added in, clients added in, writer added in, and then the editor would generally take control of the conversation and take control of the Kanban board. And then the writer would just, hey, here's the article, and it would kind of go through the step-by-steps that way. So what clients were actually buying was like a Basecamp with a writer and an editor in there. Yeah.
And so you didn't have to like what did your if you hire a new writer, what was your training like? Did you have to train them about Basecamp stuff, or would you hire people who had project management skills a little bit, or what did that look like?
No, because the editors, we would take the best talent and promote them to editors. The editors would do a lot of the comps. And so for the writers, we were mostly judging them on their work. And so the training would kind of come with the work, and the training would come in terms of feedback from the editors. So, and if we had a new placement, then those new placements would be communicated with the client. And so then the client would know that the quality may be lower than either other writers. And we'd usually try new writers with existing clients first to warm them up, to get them ready to sell onwards.
Cool. We've been talking in the community with different businesses sometimes about like slicing off, like we have a lot of, for example, developers, if they're used to doing a whole app development and the clients are all over the place, projects are different, talking about this idea of like slicing off one chunk and just handling that as your productized service. And I really like in this case that you sliced off the part that you liked and that worked with you energetically the most. Because for me, like the part of hiring that I like the least is having to like make the job post, hire the people, interview the people, find out if they're good. Like I'm not good at any of that. So to me, I would definitely see the benefit here, like just be able to pay the money, get the writer. But the key thing being that the end price on a monthly basis of this writer is like a good, affordable deal for the quality and stuff. How did you structure your margins? So like you charged a flat monthly rate for full-time, maybe you had part-time packages or whatever. How did you, what ratio? Yeah, I guess, I don't know how much you're allowed to talk to or how much you want to speak to with the sale and stuff, but I'd be really interested to hear about like what even your margin markup was on the hourly rate of a writer, and then thinking of how that
it was. So like I'll keep like the maths like relatively simple, and so I can't talk too much about, I just don't want to talk too much about numbers because there's a new owner. But more or less, like the maths was pretty simple. It's like we paid a rate in that region, and then we added a good, healthy enough markup to the client on top of that. And because they're full, it's like I pay a monthly rate to the writer, and then they're placed kind of like full time to the client, and then I'm just making whatever that difference is, right?
Yeah.
And that was as simple as the maths was. It was like my COGS is a monthly payment to the contractor, and my revenue is whatever the client's kind of like paying for that. And again, very based on skill set, time in the company, all that kind of stuff. But it was pretty clean maths.
The part that makes it less clean, that doesn't apply to you so much because you had such a simple model, but the part that becomes less clean is it's like this ops person, you don't have a markup for them. The editors, you don't have a markup for them. They all kind of eat into the markup, and their services can be distributed across multiple writers. So at least in my experience, that's the toughest part of scaling an agency is like, if you do a 100% markup on staff rates, you're like, okay, cool. So I pay this person $50 an hour. I charge 100, easy. I get free $50 an hour. But this $50 an hour has to pay for all these staff members who make the projects flow and stuff. I like your model because you don't have so many things eating into it, but I'm curious, maybe you can't speak to it, but I am kind of curious, like what you targeted as a markup. And if you don't want to speak to it with this specific business that you sold, maybe you could say, for someone who's starting a similar business with a similar structure, what you think the minimum markup they should have on their developer rates or their writer rates or whatever the people who are placed, what the minimum percent they should like mark up by for their clients would be to be viable.
I'll answer it in like a slightly different way. I think you need to work out like what the competitive edge is. I think running the same business but hiring American writers, I wouldn't have got anywhere. Like I wouldn't have had any margin. It just frankly wouldn't have gone anywhere. But then there's a lot of companies that are very similar to mine now, that are doing really well in similar spaces. So there's like Support Shepherd, which I think does full-time like HR and support people type stuff. And their team's based in the Philippines. Their competitive advantage is they find great talent of Filipinos that have worked in like at Microsoft or these large companies. They bring that talent in and then sell it to SMBs. You've got lemon.io, which does developers in Eastern Europe. I've got a friend in Tokyo who does Ukrainian developers who they're all amazing. And he brings them specifically to Japanese companies and teaches Japanese companies modern tech development, which I think is really, really cool. But again, he's just basically a placement business. That's kind of like all that he does. And then I was talking to a guy like who's now signed up to Bento, and he's currently working on kind of similar business to my friend, but hiring employees in Mexico that are developers and finding great talent there, and then selling it back into his hometown and like home region. So there's plenty of ways to skin this, but you do need like a little bit of a competitive personnel advantage to make this kind of business model work. Otherwise, you will price too high and you'll potentially have too high churn. Because what you're trying to work out is how can I make everyone happy? How can I over deliver on value? Make sure that the person doing the work, so the contractor, is very happy. They're getting paid above local salaries and stuff. And to spend time researching into that, like what is a great salary in that region, what is going to give someone a really great lifestyle there, and pay accordingly. And yeah, just how can you just make everyone happy? And you can do that if you take the whole world into account and you think a little bit more globally. You can't make it happen if you just hire in the West, to be frank, or even most parts of Europe. It's pretty tricky to happen.
And so let's say that I found this arbitrage and I had a service where I was charging clients $3,000 a month, and in order to overpay, keep my staff happy, I pay $1,500 to this developer or whatever. Like, do you feel like that's a safe buffer, or should I aim for like 3,000 and 1,000 or something?
No, what you said's great. I mean, I kind of like that number seems good and healthy.
Okay,
because it gives you enough it gives you enough margin there to like lose a client and kind of have someone else kind of like cover that. It gives you enough margin to hire people to overlook the work, which is great. That's simple maths. So I like that. It's better margins than an agency typically has, right? But again, what you're trying to look for is how is the value that I'm delivering so good that
the 3,000 is like a no-brainer.
Yeah. How can I make sure that price is like such a no-brainer for someone? Like they're getting so much great work for that price that like when they're doing their, and this always happens, like end of the year, they're checking off all their expenses. How do you make it so they look at that line item and they go, I like that team, I'll just keep them on, and they just move on.
Yeah.
What you don't want to happen, which happens with a lot of SaaS tools, is they go, that $30. Like you don't want them to give as much scrutiny to your business as they do those like $30 SaaS tools that they hate and they cut off, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a value thing more so than anything else.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and like what seems to be like a boon for your business was that the clients you had saw writing naturally as like very integral to their business plan, whereas there might have been other clients who saw writing as like a cost center where they would have scrutinized and wanted to cut. But in your case, it's like a no-brainer. It's like for me, Bento, we pay like Bento is one of our highest subscription fees probably at this point. But it's a no-brainer, right? Because email marketing, like email is where money comes from. So you would never cut an email platform. And given that you have yours competitively priced, it's not even I don't even have to look at Bento's features. I just say I like it better than ConvertKit, costs about the same, no brainer, keep it, that kind of thing.
Which is why, like we, and that same, we get people that are like, you're priced too low, or you're undervaluing like Bento, right? Like I can charge more than Active Campaign and ConvertKit. Like Zach, you've used the tool. It's good. Like I could charge more, but I don't, because like if people want to leave for some reason, they're going to be paying 15 to 20% more when they switch for a worse tool. So why would you ever churn? Which is why our churn's low, and revenue keeps climbing at like a steady pace. So I'm always thinking about the whole value dichotomy. It's like, how can I make sure that the price and the value is just so good that you don't want to consider cutting that line item off, because retaining a customer is always better than trying to constantly find new ones. And same with Bento now, the lead flow is mostly word of mouth and like a couple of one affiliate maybe and all that. But because churn's so low, revenue keeps climbing at like a really good positive rate, even though our distribution channels are really low. And so I like that. I really like that type of business model. It just feels good,
Yeah, and like to your point of being a good neighbor and stuff, like I like Bento. I plan to at some point find out how to be an affiliate. I don't know if I am one already, and like promote Bento intentionally. And you haven't been nagging me to do it, but it's nonetheless on my radar because I like the tool and I'm telling people about it anyway. So it's just one of those things. Like I think what I like so much about your approach is that it's simple. I think sometimes when we get obsessed with tactics, at least for me, I can feel some anxiety because I feel like if I'm not trying to do all these tactics, like I can't make it work. Like I have to try tactics. And I feel like it's like a peaceful inhale sometimes to just be like, you just create a valuable thing. You try to help people, be a good neighbor, just keep trying. Sasha, as you've been listening, because I know a bit about your current model, like if you've had your mental gears spinning around productized service offerings and things like this from Jesse's comments today, if you have anything you want to type into the chat, or we can do a Q&A like to get takes on your ideas or anything, feel free to type it in. I'm going to steer Jesse into kind of a new direction, but I could definitely see for you, Sasha, this productized thing being relevant. So don't feel like we're leaving behind. We can definitely come back to it. Type in questions if you've got them. So Jesse, the things that I have down, I've been kind of keeping notes about like, what are the things Jesse did really well? What are the things we can reproduce? And like, I think that when I'm hearing about your business model, I do see some opportunities that probably the person who bought it from you seized. Like you didn't have scalable marketing. Like that to me is a really big opportunity for how this thing could have gone much, much bigger if you had scaled it more. But you, it seems like, built it to be a lifestyle business. That's what it was. And it's what that lifestyle business is what enabled you to start Bento. If you were going only for how can I make as much money as possible from this agency, you wouldn't have had that like bandwidth to start Bento, presumably.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So the key takeaways I have down so far is like simple business model, self-evident value of the service offered, solution-aware clients, not needing like excessive hierarchical structures of like project management. I think that one's huge in terms of the viability and like the success that you experienced. And
pricing at a point that you can get away with that, right? Like if you price way too high, then companies expect massive management overhead and stuff, right? But if you price at a sweet spot, you got to work out what that sweet spot is for your niche. You can cut scope and do less. And generally you can always do less. This is something that like I learned, this is a complete tangent. It's something that I always learned when I started, because I came from like the e-commerce SMB world. I didn't know how to run an agency. And so when it came to proposals and stuff, I tried a couple of things. And then I was like, you know what if I just like say no to proposals? And so like really early on, I just never sent proposals. And I used to like, I think at one point I just said this like 1-page PowerPoint thing that I would send. It was just very clear like what I was delivering, and I would just send that. And then they would just kind of sign off. And there'll be any contracts, I'll be like, no, it's just like and then another one other thing. I used to also bill weekly on Stripe. That was something else that I did, or fortnightly when I was consulting, and that always worked really, really well. I found like when I because I wasn't necessarily budging on the total value, but when I cut down the commitments to like, hey, you're going to see like work every week and I'm going to bill you for that every week, that kept me accountable to the client. And then additionally, the client was willing to take a bet on me as well, because there was like, weekly installments and weekly work being seen. And early on in my career, I really liked that way of working. So again, focusing on like that value part, working out like, all right, like how can I structure this value to a point where a client's easily going to jump on it. It's low risk to them and they're getting a lot of value, or there's a commitment from me, the company, to deliver on that value. So yeah, a little bit of a tangent, but that was how I kind of got around some pricing objections early on. With higher price points.
Yeah, especially compared to saying like, hey, you're going to pay me up front for 3 months versus like you're going to see the value after a couple weeks. And it's also nice too, because they're paying a smaller, like it's just a smaller dollar amount invoice, even though those invoices are happening more often.
And you should be showing up every week to do the work if you're doing client service work, right? If it's one-to-one and it's just you. And so it keeps you accountable to write a weekly update. Hey, Joe, I shipped this and this to the website. These are my commits, right? And because they're seeing that frequency, often they want less output, which was another learning point. So most SMBs just want people like consultants to show up and do the work. Even me, like running Bento and stuff, like I just want someone to do the work and do it consistently and give me an update once a week. And I generally care a little bit less about the output, even though it shouldn't be that way, but it is. I think people just want to pay for results. Oh, sorry, they want to pay for consistency and people showing up.
Yeah, knowing that they've got someone who's taking care of stuff is a valuable thing alone, sounds like.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I had done as a key takeaway is that you like sliced off a part of the service that was both valuable and profitable and stuff, but also that you liked. That's another thing I have down. What do you think, if you were to say any other like key takeaways, things that you think people should keep in mind of what you did well, or maybe big opportunities that you missed that you think you could have done better? Any other like key things you want people to have in mind about your agency days?
I really liked the team that I like hired early on. So much so that like I flew everyone to like Venice in like Italy to do like a team retreat, just because I thought it would be fun. This is when we were doing more full servicey stuff. And I remember like the team in Eastern Europe that were there, they were just so cool. And I just really got along with them and I really liked doing work with them. And I just thought like the chutzpah and like the energy was just so good in that region. And so there was a part of me that was just like, I want to do more there. But at the time I was, I had a guy in New York, I had someone in the Netherlands, I had someone, another person in the Netherlands, and it was just, I don't know, probably should like listen to my gut a lot earlier on, I think, where it was like, I love working with this like group of people. I should probably focus on working more with that group of people. Same with Bento, right? There's like a couple of segments that I really love working with. And so work really hard to self-select to work with more of them. And that does well for my mental health. And it's like just a good thing to always be thinking of. Just how can I filter? Because again, early on, I wasn't really doing too much filtering, taking on any clients, taking on a lot of work, just trying to figure it out. And then later on in my career, a lot more filtering for people I like working with, both clients and team members.
Yeah, I think that's great. So what goes into the like so I know that you like to help like people like DYF. I think you've said like course creator, internet marketer sorts of folks and stuff. But like, so what goes into like, is it just that you like the impact that these sorts of clients have with others, or like what makes how do you define care about? Like clients you care about, segments you care about?
Yeah, well, let's say like DYF, like you, Zach, are polite. You use the tool in a lot of funny ways. You push the limits in some ways. But
for people listening, he defines people who break his tool as Zachs, just for the record.
at the moment, I do. Yeah. Yeah. So you're thoughtful. You're helpful. You push the tool. You appreciate the tool. I think you see what I'm building, and so our engagements are kind, right? Even if there's something that needs work, that their kind engagements. And then I've also got customers that are also kind. Like one guy, he runs this like massive like he runs an e-commerce website that sells those, those like sweeping machines, those big sweeping machines that people ride and they like clean the floor and stuff. He just sells them, and he's got a very large list. And he came on, and all he does is I think he sends out like a newsletter every now and again and stuff. He's like super appreciative. He came from Klaviyo over, and he's just like a really kind, cool dude who's just like, sweet, I get to save some cash and support a small business. And I had some good like small business chats with him. So a little bit of it's just like personality fits, right? I had a guy this morning who is not a good fit, and we sent him a denial email. It's like kind of automated. It's just like, hey, just tell us a little bit more about your business. And he just went psycho. It was an Australian guy, just went completely nuts. And then I just replied, I was like, yeah, it's probably good, man. Like it's probably not a good fit, and you've just self-selected yourself really early on by just reacting poorly to this email. And so I don't need to chase that guy, even if he's, a few $100 or $1,000 a month. I'm not in the mood of chasing and being like, oh, I'm so sorry for that email. Like, you're approved. Like, come back. I'm not going to do that. Yeah. It's a waste of time.
So it sounds like your selection process is less about like industry or something and more about just personality fit, like working with good customers, good clients, that kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. And less about industries and niches somewhat. It just so happens that like more technical businesses, and also slightly more mature business owners and stuff, they just kind of get it, if there's an issue or something and I'm responsive, that's often all that they really want, right? So and that's been true in all the businesses. All people want to do is business with responsive humans. And so if you can just do that, you'll generally retain customers really well. If you're not doing that and you're churning pretty heavily, that's probably why. And a lot of freelancers and consultants that I've worked with or have had experience with or have spoken to, if I dig into their business a little bit and I try and like work out like how are you communicating with the clients, like how often are you communicating, they're not doing anything at all. And like it's somewhat shameful. They should do more, or at least acknowledge that they should be doing more in that regard, and often just communicating more or giving your team the ability to communicate more or more freely. Like some team members, at least with like the writing company, didn't really feel comfortable because of like English barriers or something. They didn't really feel too comfortable or feel like they had permission to. And so when we gave them more permission to and vocalize that, they became more confident. Even like Anya on my team early on, when I brought her on and she does like our Discord support, I paid to get her like a new avatar designed, for her Discord image. And a large part of doing that was to help give her permission, because having a photo of yourself is kind of intimidating. People judge and all that. So I was like, well, if she gets like a nice, pretty headshot, like designed, like cool cartoon style or whatever, she may be more confident at presenting herself and talking to people, which she does now all the time. So yeah, we did that with the previous business. We designed like avatars for some of the writers and the team. I know when you're behind an avatar, sometimes you just talk more confidently. An avatar that looks like themselves, not like an NFT type thing, but like an actual either hand-drawn avatar or now I guess you could use like an AI tool to generate something. But yeah.
So if there's, let's just say like a developer working on an app project that is going to take 3 months to build, and they work maybe 2 hours a day on this project and then the rest of the day on other projects. So this is just an ongoing, everyday small work project. Like, what do you think a good communication structure looks like? Is it like a weekly update saying like, here's what I did this week, here's what's going on? Like, what do you think, what's the like SOP for that, or the KPIs for good communication as a freelancer agency?
So a part of this, you kind of like want to automate somewhat. So in Basecamp, they've got a really good, like, what do they call it? It's like a recurring question thing in I forget the name, but like you can kind of run stand-ups, right? Where the tool asks you and prompts you. So like, what are you doing this week? What did you do last week? What are you doing today? Et cetera, et cetera. So I would try and lean on the tools to prompt you. So like, hey, Zach, like, what did you do this week, Zach? and maybe let's say it's like a software client, and you're like, invite yourself into their Slack and then have like Slackbot, I think it's Geekbot, I think that's the tool, have Geekbot ping you and ask you the weekly question. And then you just fill it out every week, right? And then they're like, all right, cool. Like, I just got to check in on Monday or Friday. And Zach's message is going to be there. So you try and let the tools prompt you and do that. And so we did that with the writers, right? Every day, what did you do today? And they would just fill it out, and that was automated, right? And then when we noticed, and I think the new business owner, I think, has written something that like monitors all of them. And then if they miss too many, like he jumps on them. Where I didn't do that. Like our editors did that, but he automated that. Yeah. And I think that's helpful. So you want the tools to lead the communication somewhat. So whether that's a daily stand-up, what do you do today, all that, after your 2 hours, or is a weekly check-in that is automated to prompt you, that's probably what I would focus on doing. Don't try and remember to do it yourself. Just don't do that ever. You'll forget.
And in terms of the questions to actually answer, like, you think it's just, what did you do today? What did you do this week? What are you doing next week? Like, are those pretty much the 3 questions?
Yeah. And I think stay away from the results part. Dev work, like, it's kind of dev work is often like a hill, right? Where it's like you don't know if you're going like how high. It's like a hill with like
you can't. It's got like
right?
Yeah, it's got like maybe some clouds obscuring the height. Yeah.
It's like Mount Fuji. So
yeah, I was thinking about Fuji.
Yeah, you're climbing up, and you don't know if you're at the top and you're going down the downhill. So you kind of just want to be communicating that somewhat, right? Like, like, hey, today I worked on this. Turns out it's a little bit trickier than I thought. I'm going to try this like tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. That's your daily check-in. Or at the start of the week, it's like, hey, like I ended last week on this. And this week I'm going to carry on doing this, right? Make sure it's not in email form. I find that doesn't work. You generally want to like integrate yourself into the client business, Slack, Monday.com, whatever they're using. Or create a system for yourself that the client uses, and then have those tools work. Yeah, cool. For the agency, it was Basecamp. Everyone had to be in Basecamp. There was no exceptions. Now for Bento, it's like everyone's in Discord. DYF has their own private channel in Discord.
Yeah.
And I've got one enterprise Slack channel that I'm in. That's it. That's all I'll allow. Everyone else is in Discord.
And do you think, like, if I'm doing a dev report, should I also say the why? So like, I worked on XYZ feature, it's harder than normal. This is why I worked on this feature. Or do you think it's not even important, just that is fine?
I think for frequency of communications, that is enough. And maybe if you get blocked communicating that, kind of like typical startup stand-up-y stuff that's been kind of true since 2015 or earlier than that, right? Yeah. What did you do today? What are you doing tomorrow? Am I blocked? But you can do that on a weekly cycle, or a bi-week, twice a week cycle if you want, Monday and Friday. But keep it short. You're more just showing up, right? You're kind of clocking in, clocking out, and the client knows you're there. If they've got questions, let them ask, and make sure that the format allows them to ask. Yeah,
I love this. This is a really nice takeaway. Like I have it with my VA where I really like when she just tells me at the end of the day what she worked on. Like, it just reminds you that this person is trying. And I think, like, when I think about the classic newbie freelancer mistake, they like do a client project, they get overwhelmed, they get imposter syndrome, they get shame, and then they ghost because they like can't handle the pressure or whatever. And if they had simply said, like, I fucked up and I'm trying and I'm working on it and I'm going to keep trying until it gets sorted, like, that's all people want to hear. They just want to know you're trying. There's not any need to be perfect as long as you're, not pretending you are.
I had a guy that I tried to hire, who is like a friend, and I tried to hire him to like write some content, and he was really good. Like, he was good, but he did exactly what you were saying, where he got like overwhelmed with the work, and frankly, he screwed up. So like, I just had to go, no, like, we can't do this anymore, man. Like, you disappeared for like 4 weeks. I didn't really care that like you needed a break or something, or you needed a pause. Like, all I wanted was you to be like, hey, like, I'm writing and I don't mind if stuff's slow. Like, I just don't care. Like, all I wanted was just some good, clear communication, and you disappeared for a month. So therefore we can't work together. Right. And then that actually ended up me hiring Anya actually after that engagement, because I wanted him to help with a few things. But because he ghosted, kind of that was done. And then when I hired Anya, the thing that she was so great about was she was so responsive, always there, always checking in. Still to this day, she writes a daily report on Notion every single day, and I just quickly skim that, and it's good. She does it without fail. It's not automated, but for some reason she doesn't need any reminders. She's like, her brain works like that. She's like a task person. So for her, she just does it without fail. Actually,
I'll have to make some automations.
Just wait, that's a lie. In the daily report, she also logs her hours, and the hours we calculate at the end of the month. So technically, it's like it's important for her to always be.
She doesn't get paid if she doesn't do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not calculated. So yeah, there is a mechanism to force consistency there.
Yeah, but I've been doing things in Zapier lately where I'll just in Zapier create a new database item in Notion and assign it to myself or my staff member or whatever, and then you get a notification saying you got to go do this thing. So I'm gonna based on this, I'm gonna make that.
Nice.
So, but yeah, I love this point, and I think it's for people listening. That's the big takeaway: is communication is this consistent communication is a very much a theme for Jesse that's worked really well for him, and it's how Bento's going too. So I guess I think probably we're technically at time. Let me see how much we had it blocked for a little bit longer. So what I'd like to do, I
can go longer if you got more questions.
Okay. I'll try to 90 minutes is long for anyone listening anyway. So the last thing I want to just get your take on or insights from is what the transition from your agency into Bento looked like, because I have been personally in a pretty cushy place with my freelancing business since I don't know, 2018. And over that time, I tried to start a lot of SaaS products unsuccessfully. I did some as a solo founder, some with co-founders when I wasn't having success marketing them. But that was always the thing, is I would create a product around some concept that was interesting or holding my attention, but it wasn't something that I felt I could really market, immerse myself in, care enough about to be having conversations and actually driving people to it. So I'm curious what your process was like, or is like. Actually, no, was when you first had Bento getting started, because I think you've been doing it 2 years now, right? Something like that.
5.
Oh, 5 for Bento. Wow, cool.
2 years, it's 2 years since the sale, so 2 years full time. Okay, but a lot of side stuff and figuring stuff out and just failing abysmally. Bento's a lot of products in one, right? You agree? There's a lot of screens.
Yeah,
and so there's a lot of failed products in that one product. So yeah, I mean, for a period of time, I think we were competing really heavily with, in quotes, right message, like Brendan's product, and now we don't do that at all. you know, so it's it's just gone through a lot of iterations.
When you were first creating it, were you thinking, when you started making this transition, building this product, were you saying, how can I build a product that would serve my current customers? Was that the bridge, or?
Yeah, it was kind of I was doing growth hacky type stuff for customers, and I wanted to try and figure out how to do it myself. How can I personalize based on them being a customer? How can I change elements on the screen, right? How can I track ad performance? So that was where I started, and then it started not pivoting, but it was I kept solving problems. All right, cool. I'm tracking visitors and I'm tracking identities. How can I now send an email based on the actions, and it just it kept pulling threads that way. And arguably I didn't really sell that well. I sold to customers, but we churned really fast because the tool wasn't there and it wasn't mature. But it was 2 years ago, when I started to go very, after I sold the business, I started to go very, very hard down the email marketing automation route, and stuff started to really click, because we started to be a very started to be competitive with Drip, ConvertKit, and all those other tools. And when I started wedging myself into that product category was when stuff started to really work. Whereas before, I wasn't in a category. I was a all-in-one platform. But in a lot of ways, it was kind of Bento was my experimental playground. So I was teaching myself how to code and all that, quite expensively, to be honest. And now it's all paid out, but at the time, very big red hole, but I enjoyed it, so I didn't actually really care too much.
And it's kind of like the route with your agency. Really, you started out doing just everything and kind of maybe figuring out what you resonated with, and then you focused on one thing. So did you, when you decided to sell your agency to move on to Bento, like, did you do that because Bento was now earning some proper revenue and you had focused in on email automation, or was that after the sale that you even did that?
No. It was like actually, I'm not going to talk about personal stuff, but at the time there was a lot of personal stuff going on. And it was just good timing. I wasn't actually considering floating the business, but I had like a friend reach out, and then I mentioned it to another friend, and they were like, all right, I'm actually interested in buying the business. And those people ended up being the acquirers. So, and they were also actually a client. That's actually a kind of an interesting point. They were a previous client and also friends. And I was kind of surprised at the time that they were like interested. I was also surprised at the time that they like were willing to put up the cash for it. Because it was a sizable amount. And I also didn't believe at the time I could sell an agency. But then when I started talking to them, it started to feel like a really good fit. And what was important to me was they were going to be like good bastions to the team, which has proven to be true. And so, yeah. And the amount was like sizable enough that I didn't have to make money on Bento for a pretty long time. But my brain's kind of a little bit screwed. So like the minute I sold it, I basically worked hardcore on Bento because I didn't like seeing the cash go to zero.
Yeah.
And then, well, like almost like pretty low. And then I was like, all right, I gotta get the revenue back up. It's got to beat the agency. And now it's beating the agency, which for me is cool because it's like, all right, it took, however many people to have that much revenue, and now it's literally just me and Anya with the same revenue from SaaS.
Yeah.
So that, I've been reflecting on that in the last month, and I'm proud of myself. It's been like a long journey, but yeah, the first 6 months I went really hard after I sold the business to really try and figure a lot of this stuff out. And what going hard meant was like building product. It was making workflows better. It was bringing on a guy to help me build the workflows product. It was rounding out stuff. It was talking about the product a lot more because I felt like I had permission to talk about it, because when I had the team, I felt like I couldn't really talk too much about Bento because it was more important to keep everyone employed by talking about the writing business.
So when you sold the business, so it sounds like you mostly sold the business like for the personal reasons, and then you doubled down on Bento. Like what I'm trying to think of is like, I guess in my case, so some of the apps I made, like I think the failed apps when I look back on them, like one of them was an espresso app, dial in your espresso shots. Another one was like this table tennis leagues app. All of these are like, they're not close to the money. They are not like established markets. They're not going to be this uncancelable line item in a subscription. And they weren't things that I could really felt like I knew much about the market. And I guess in this case, if you knew you were targeting email automation, like there's no doubt that there is a market for email automation, and that furthermore, the people you're already talking with, communities you're already in, all of these people would use this tool. So I'm just curious, like what made you feel like Bento was validated enough that you could safely double down and go hard on it, like building out the product? Because if you build out a product before it's validated, then you stand to potentially like waste a lot of time. Like how do you feeling like this is definitely the right thing that I should invest into?
I have no idea. I'm trying to think
Okay.
about it. I have no idea. I've never thought critically about that part of the business either. I think like for me, I had I think still to this day, I feel like I have, because I've used so many tools in this category, I have a taste. You have a taste, Brendan has a taste. You've got like a taste in email marketing and automation tools, right? And my job was, how can I make Bento as close to my taste as possible, And all my work is doing that. And I felt that if I could have it get close to my taste, if I could have my tool be close to the taste, I would have something sellable and I would have something market ready. And I think because the category is clear enough and the market is wide enough, it's not that hard, frankly, to like figure out something there. Especially with my sales approach, right? Like with email marketing, you just need a hand. You can stack revenue because people pay thousands of dollars for those tools, right? If I had something where I was selling $30 a month or whatever, I don't think I could have made this work, because it would just require such a larger volume of leads. Like, I've got a friend who runs like a language learning app. He's got a lot more customers than me, but he likes doing B2C marketing. I don't, you know, he's got a very large email list. I don't. Like, it's just different styles. So I think kind of understanding what type of personality you have sort of dictates what type of products you can go into, because like what you're willing to advertise, how you're willing to market yourself, all that kind of stuff. It's all personality, founder driven. At least in the first like million ARR, I think it's all founder led, founder personality driven for the most part.
So the theme that I think that I see is that if we were to say, how can we reproduce what Jesse's done here? If I want to grow an agency and use an agency as like a springboard into SaaS, seems like find a client, a type of client you care about, and do things for them that are like valuable. Ideally, this should be probably a B2B client. Almost every freelancer is serving B2B pretty much. And then when you're moving into the SaaS direction, be thinking of like what you can be doing for them that is also really valuable, ideally for similar types of clients if you want to leverage the agency experience. Do you think that's the through line, or what do you think the reproducible takeaways are? Or do you think even it matters that you serve a similar type of client with Bento that you would have with your agency?
Yeah. I think making sure that you do pick something hard enough. This is actually something else I've been thinking about like recently, but a little bit different to what you're asking, but making sure that you pick a product that is hard enough and worthwhile enough to go after. Email marketing is really hard. I mean, you see me moaning about a lot of the stuff that I deal with. It's really hard. Marketing automation is really hard. Building a workflow system is really hard. Building a workflow system that can take a Zach is very, very hard. And so, which means like, if it's hard and there's a lot of customers in there, it means you can kind of like wedge yourself in that space. If you got patience and you got resilience and you got like the time to stay in the market to figure it out. If I did like the same and I just focused on analytics, ad tracking, which was like kind of the early days, and I was really stubborn and I didn't like kind of keep moving and keep kind of changing stuff up, I probably wouldn't have built a proper business. And there are businesses like that, but I just don't think I cared about ad tracking enough. I think it's a really like nice to have now for like a lot of Bento customers, because the product's still like in there, but it's not like, it's something that someone could cross off the line item and be like, all right, don't have to pay the $200 sub for, right? Email marketing, no way.
And so if somebody was going to like make the transition without selling their agency, do you think it would be basically that, but because the thing that's tough to me about a really hard SaaS is that like, it's hard. You have to invest so many hours or dollars into building the product. Like, how do you ensure that it's going to work? Like how do you validate it first? I guess that's the theme I keep asking. Like, maybe it's just
give maybe giving like an example of like a friend who's kind of doing similar, not similar, but like maybe doing a path that might be a little bit more relatable. So I got a friend who does a lot of WordPress speed work. He's a really, really good friend. He's also a Bento customer with like 3 sites. And with him, he does like a lot of WordPress speed work, but he's moving into the hosting business. Hosting is very competitive, but he's very, very good at speed. And so for him, he can kind of create a hosting business that specializes with a very specific set of customers he likes working with. And something that he found was his insight was people that host their WordPress businesses that he like works with, what they actually want is they want an incident team when something goes wrong. And they're willing to pay just for that, So it's like hosting, everyone does hosting. But what everyone doesn't do is provide an incident team. So if the site goes down, there's an issue, it gets hacked, the incident team jumps on and you pay a premium for that. Right. And then now you can instantly see like a whole service offering that he can offer and a great scalable business that he can offer.
Yeah.
And like, that's cool. Right. And it's also really unique. I don't want to go with WP Engine. I don't want to go with Kinstar. What happens if my site gets hacked? Right. And they're like, that's kind of on you. Whereas with him, It's not, and he can charge a
Yeah.
premium for it. So that's it. That's maybe a more relatable example of a way that you
Yeah.
can build like a SaaS that still is very service driven and
Yeah,
high
totally.
value. And
Yeah, I love that. I think that is a great model. And I think the thread I see between that and yours too is that in both of these cases, there's a well-established competitor who's doing really, really well. Like WP Engine, gigantic business. ConvertKit, ActiveCampaign, gigantic businesses. So in both of your cases, like these are high-value problems with precedent. It's not like, oh, I'm going to help people dial in espresso shots. It's like businesses pay money and they're not going to cancel this stuff, you know? And I also love this hybridized product and service because that's my exact thing. Like, you know, with WP Engine, you can integrate with Security, but that's they have some kind of collaboration, but still it's like a third-party tool and it's like it's on
scary
you. Yeah.
if it doesn't work.
Yeah, I love the idea of just being able to say, okay, my site's down. I can call somebody on the phone and they're going to sort it. And there's somebody who's like in my corner. That's awesome.
The first 6 months of Bento as well, I did what was called managed accounts, where I would charge like $1,000 or something, where I would run your Bento account. And I brought on a guy to help me a little bit with that. Stopped doing that after the revenue started stacking up, but that hybrid of SaaS plus service is really good starting out because it's really intimate. You're using your own tool and you're going, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks.
Yeah.
And then you're fixing it. But again, people are like, okay, I want to pay for the tool. I don't want to do the work. And like, that's our main objection now. It's like, I want to use the tool. I don't want to migrate. And so our job is to remove all that. And again, early on, it was just pay and I'll do all the work for you. I'll write your newsletters. I'll do your welcome sequence and stuff. And a lot of that was just me getting a feel for how my customers wanted to use my product as a customer and letting them drive it with words and then making sure it was really easy for the next customer to do the same. And I think a lot of great product was built out of that 6 months of doing managed accounts.
I think so too. I mean, my big experience running this community so far has been that like it's so valuable to be able to understand where people are getting stuck in the courses. And if it were just selling a course and not talking with somebody, you never get that data. If it's just you selling a piece of software and someone churns, you don't really know. Like maybe they leave one comment that says, oh, it was hard to use. And that's all you ever get about
this sucks.
Yeah. You don't get that like day-to-day, like, oh, I'm trying to do this thing and it doesn't work. And so I love that. And I also love like my general take on all this stuff is that if you're selling service, it's the easiest way to get short-term money. If you're selling a product, it's the easiest way to get scalable long-term money. And I love this hybrid approach because it allows you to sell a product, but also get short-term money. So you get like this financial viability while you're still building it, but then this like icing on the cake, which I feel like the icing maybe in this case weighs more than the cake. It's a lot of icing, is the fact that you get all this one-on-one interaction and feedback from the customers. I love that. That seems like a great way to transition.
Which turns you into like a product-driven company, I think.
Yeah.
And you're kind of forced to get feedback, iterate on the feedback, make a better product, and then stuff starts to get to the destination. And in my case, it forced the product to get to close to where my taste is. It's not there yet, but it's getting closer every time I get more feedback and I iterate on it, and I'm close to my customers.
And I'm going to keep nagging you about that thing where I can pass event details into the event details of other events. Well, cool. This has been great. I think that this gives me a pretty good picture. I think it's a lot to take in for people listening, but I feel like there have been some really like just gems on gems on gems. So this feels like a good time to transition. Just a quick question. If someone likes you and they wanted to learn more about you. Oh, no, I do have one more question. How do you get your customers for Bento? How did your first ones, it sounds like, were from clients and stuff, but once you went hard on Bento, how did you get the customers?
It's now word of mouth.
Okay, I figured it might be something like that.
But again, it's like word of mouth from weird spots, right? It's like I had someone sign up the other day for $2,000 a month, onboarded himself, imported the list, started sending out newsletters, didn't talk to him once, and someone on another forum recommended just checking us out. You know, you don't know how. I think it was in e-commerce fuel, right? And I'm not in that, but someone I had interacted with previously years ago interacted in that forum and sold me a $2,000 a month customer. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I mean by the compounding effect of just being helpful online.
Yeah.
It plays out in these weird ways where you're like, cool, that's good money. Yeah. and
Yeah.
that stuff's happening every day. Like honestly, that stuff's happening every single day, and it's not quite flywheely yet, but it's pretty close.
Yeah.
It's pretty close.
And the thing is, if you had served as a freelancer, like clients you didn't care about, none of that would have been, you wouldn't have had that to benefit you. So I do think that is a through line, is like, if someone who's listening can try to target, like, who is it that they care about, that they want to serve, that they'll still care about and still want to serve in 10 or 20 years, when maybe they're running a whole different type of business, where all these interactions now and all this like personal brand building can become an asset that serves them forever, versus what they're doing now is like a flash in the pan, earn some money from something you don't care about or someone you don't care about.
Yeah, and reputation, like who do you want to build a reputation with, I think is also something to kind of like consider. So yeah, who's your reputation important to, and just kind of focusing on that.
Cool. All right. Good to know. Thank you. So if somebody wanted to learn more about you, is it just bentonow.com, bentonow.com, that they would go to, or where should they go to?
Yeah, that works.
Like,
or I'm on like on Twitter, so like JESSE T Hanley, HANLEY. That's my Twitter handle. That's usually where I hang out most.
Cool.
If you want to use my email marketing software, like you said, Zach, you can just go to bentonow.com. But yeah, I don't know. I'm around. If you've got questions, you can always DM me. I like answering kind of like the consulting freelance agency questions. They're fun.
Great. And for people listening, I plan one day soon to do some how-to stuff in Bento, where we can show like how to set up a lead magnet and like onboarding flow and things like that would like leverage Bento and Typeform and things, but it doesn't exist yet.
All your stuff.
I don't want to do that. It'll overwhelm everybody. That's like level 6. Jesse, anything you want to share before we go? Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I think my last takeaway is something else that was really helpful for me throughout like all of this was reducing my goals and stop thinking too far forward ahead of stuff, and just taking things bit by bit. I think when I started at all these different stages, you know, whether it was an agency or consulting or anything, there's a lot of people that talk a lot of stuff about scaling and all that. And every day, all I kind of focus on is like doing my best work on that day, and that's it. And I just try and do my best. And I found when I scoped everything in to just like, I'm trying to do my best every single day, everything started to work way better. My work got better, my anxiety decreased, my revenue started increasing, and a lot of that was removing the goals and kind of like constant, like, I gotta keep scaling, gotta keep growing attitude. And the minute I removed that, things started to be much better for me. So just focus on doing good work, and generally good things come. If you do good work on a long enough time horizon, good things come. So just focus on doing that. Yeah,
I think that's a great takeaway. I've seen that in my own freelance business too. Like, all the strategies aside, the thing that there were a lot of things I didn't do well. The one thing I did well is I did a really good job for a long time. That's all it comes down to. I'm curious though, like, because I do think that tying that in with some system to ensure that this good work you're doing, like let's say the on the business kind of work, making sure that that time is actually kind of like moving you in the right direction versus moving you in the wrong direction. Like, if you don't have that tied in with a longer term goal, how do you know?
Take more breaks and to kind of check in with yourself, maybe go on a holiday, go on a break to the parks, you know, go for some hikes or whatever, and just check in with yourself. Does the work feel good directionally? Is there momentum there? But don't think too deeply in it and get too existential. I think that can sometimes ruin the vibe and kind of trip you up too much. So I think taking breaks, going for walks, doing some exercise, taking your pets out, all that kind of stuff, and just trying to check in with yourself. Am I aligned? Does it feel good? Is there momentum? Cool, let's keep going. If there's not those things, then listen to your gut and try and take action on that.
Cool. That's a great framework. Thanks, Jesse. Great to chat. And I'm sure you'll hear from me requesting some new features or reporting some bugs soon enough.
Can't wait.
Cool. See you guys.
All right, see ya.